All right, greetings. Welcome back to Blackbird News, where everything is connected. I think my mic is on, but please let me know if there's any issues with the audio. Hard for me to tell sometimes. All right, good to see you. Thanks for being here. We're live on Rockfin, Rumble, and on YouTube. Make sure and follow the TikTok at Black Bear News. That's where I do other content as well. And just kind of wanted to get right into it. There's lots to cover. Did get the monthly. I am getting, by the way, the people that are subscribed on Buy Me a Coffee, thank you. I'm getting those. I am receiving those. I appreciate you. The people that are subscribing on Patreon, I'm getting those. I'm receiving those. Thank you. So this was kind of happened before my show yesterday or while the show was I don't know. I didn't see this until after I had finished the show yesterday. That we had done some ATACMS with ATACMS. So Biden signed off on Ukraine using these long-range missiles against Russia, and then they were like, okay, well, then let's go ahead and do it. So this was actually quite big news yesterday and today. It's still ongoing. The developing of the story and the escalating of the war. We just attacked Russia. Headlines are reporting Ukraine fired U.S.-made ATACMS missiles into Russia. What they leave out is that ATACMS strikes require American assistance with intelligence and targeting. Joe Biden just started World War III with 3 months left in his term. Sorry.
After President Biden gave Ukraine permission to use the weapons to strike targets inside Russia. This headline, already alarming, but it actually gets way, way worse. So the long-range missile system we sent Ukraine is called ATACMS. It stands for Army Tactical Missile System, and it's a supersonic tactical ballistic missile designed and manufactured by the U.S. defense company Lockheed Martin. Now, this next part that I'm about to read is the super alarming part that nobody's talking about. None of the headlines are mentioning this. But Ukraine, they say, have been using its own drones and missiles to strike inside of Russia. One attack at Toropets in September took out 3 to 4 months worth of ammunition. But the ATACMS strikes require American assistance with intelligence and targeting. I'm going to read that again. ATACMS strikes require American assistance with intelligence and targeting, meaning that we, the U.S., the United States of America, are the ones pushing the button. So the Biden administration, with 3 months left in their term, has just committed an act of war.
Yeah, they seem intent on, ramping things up. And I don't know. This flies in the face of all the people that were just so sure that that somehow, voting for Kamala was going to be a better choice than Trump. And I'm not, again, please, I'm not saying either one was a better choice. I'm saying, the flailing about by people who were like, oh my God, I'm seeing it everywhere, still seeing it everywhere. And people, liberals somehow in mourning or, sad that Trump got, I get it. Okay. You don't like the guy. He's not a likable guy. He's got problems. I get it. But what are you supporting? What exactly are you supporting? You're supporting lunatics. And so that doesn't make your position, that makes your position just, untenable. I just, again, please try and understand this is not an endorsement of Trump. Never was, never was. Never was an endorsement of Trump. Just please. I just we're the Uniparty is fully in control. And that's about all I got to say. TV doctors and tariffs for all. Yeah. I mean, whatever's happening on that in that land, in Trump land, there's a lot happening there. That's completely ridiculous. Yeah. Some people are calling some of these things good things. I have no idea, because I have no idea what's going to happen when he actually takes office. Again, we live in the age where any kind of data or news or information can be waved as waved around as like, this is totally great or this is totally terrible, right? You can pick a side depending on your ideological mind frame, and then go hard on that side. But I don't. This is what's happening now is absolutely madness, absolute madness. Which is what has been happening through. If you've been paying attention and you've been following along, and you've been, if you've been paying attention, following along, if you've been watching the news and watching the events that have been unfolding over the last few years. They've been doing this the whole time. It's been rolling downhill. The situation has been just getting worse and getting worse and getting worse and getting worse and getting worse. There is absolutely nothing about this administration, or nothing about this party, or nothing about this side of the aisle that is worth endorsing or supporting. Absolutely nothing. That's just my opinion. Absolutely nothing. There is absolutely no moral high ground, and these people are gonna get something popping off before Trump even takes office. Which, if you paid attention the last time Trump was in office, again, very mixed messages and mixed bag of results in the last Trump administration. Right, they did plot a coup against Venezuela. They did kill Soleimani. He did strike Syria with the boatload of missiles. Apparently didn't start any new wars. That's true. Didn't start any new wars. But he did actually try to wind things down in Syria and in Afghanistan, and was openly thwarted in those instances. So I don't know. I don't know. He says he wants to wind things down in Ukraine. Doesn't seem to have the same message regarding Israel or Iran. Seems to want to ramp things up with Israel or Iran. It's a mixed bag. I don't know. Unfortunately, that's what we got. We got insane and insaner. I don't, have no idea where we're going from here. All we can really do is, get loud if possible. And hope, frickin' hope that there are cooler heads will prevail, or that some kind of some sanity, some kind of, common sense will prevail over the next few months. That somebody, I covered this yesterday, that there are White House staffers, revolting and rebelling right now against the Biden administration about what, continuing to arm Israel and continuing to vote down a ceasefire agreement. It's bad. The situation is not great. And I think everyone's aware of that. And it depends on your viewpoint, whether you want to like really dwell on it and get super depressed about it. I think this is what happens when things get bad. People go in one of two directions. They focus on it and obsess on it, or they're like, I just don't want to hear it. I want to tune it out. I want to turn it off. Just give me some good news, or just give me some cats playing with balls of yarn on the internet. And that's I get it. I get both of those reactions totally. Will a nuclear war be a danger to democracy? Good question. Good question. I mean, you do have some people thinking that Trump is going to be at least a return to some kind of sanity, which I know for some people that seems like a ridiculous notion, but for a lot of people, what's going on right now is insane. What has been happening over the last few years has been insane. So they're hoping that a change of guard, or brings a change of heart and brings some sanity. That might be hopium. I don't know what else we have. This is from Kim.com. The U.S. Air Force directed ATACMS missile strike. The ATACMS missile strike against Russia civilians. So I don't know if this is true. This seems weird for Kim.com. Does Kim.com put out kind of stuff like this? I don't know. Or hyperbolic type posts. I feel like Kim.com is usually generally more trustworthy, but maybe I'm wrong. But this video he's showing here, I swear to God, I've seen this video before. This is old. This is from like last year or 2 years ago. So I don't know about the correctness of this post, but he's saying the Air Force directed ATACMS missile strikes against Russia. This is an act of war. Did Joe Biden seek permission from Congress to start a direct war with Russia? Did Americans sign up for this? But I feel like this is, I don't know about this. The Russian military is using GPS jamming to prevent drone and missile strikes from Ukrainian territory. That's why the U.S. Air Force Global Hawk provided targeting data and remote control for the ATACMS attack in an act of war by the U.S. government against Russia. And, we kind of have to wait and see what the response from Russia is going to be, or whether there's going to be some kind of, attempt at diplomacy or, backing down. Discus says 25th Amendment today. I agree. I actually totally agree with that. I feel like they need to, there needs to be a full-on revolt. There won't be, unfortunately, because there isn't enough support in Congress for that kind of action. But I mean, if they, there were talks of like impeaching Biden and, but who knows? But I would be all for that. This needs to be stopped. He needs to be stopped. He needs to be, shut the F down. Is that true? Putin and Trump have spoken with each other and agreed to a conference about a peace treaty. And I was wondering about that because I didn't know. I know that there's been a video going around about, Trump having something to say about this, but it was actually an older video from a few days ago, so it wasn't really like specifically about this situation. So that was a bit of a not really an actual response. I mean, this is from an hour ago. Putin reportedly opened a ceasefire talks with Trump, demands Ukraine drop NATO bid, give up land. Which I think that Trump has actually agreed. Trump is like, I think, agreed to those terms already. In essence, I think he's already agreed to those terms. So, if I actually would support, like going around, you know what I mean? Like if Trump and Putin, just started talking and just, and they're like, hey, look, we gotta stop this. Before it like gets out of control. There's all kinds of crazy stuff going on. The communication cables being cut in the North Sea is the North Sea, and apparently by a Chinese vessel, but with Russian a Russian captain and Russian crew. Putin reportedly opened to ceasefire talks. Claims he is open to discussing Ukraine ceasefire with U.S. President-elect Donald Trump, but wants to keep Ukrainian land and demands Kiev abandon its NATO ambitions. That has always been their demand. That hasn't changed. That has not changed. Trump, who was promised to swiftly end the war, takes office as Russia controls a Ukraine-sized territory comparable to Virginia and advances at its fastest pace since 2022, although it comes at great cost to the Russian army. Russia may also consider withdrawing from smaller areas in Kharkiv and Mykolaiv. However, recent U.S. approval for Ukraine's use of ATACMS missiles on Russian territory could delay talks and harden Moscow's demands. If no deal is struck, Moscow is prepared to continue fighting, the sources claimed. Putin has already said that freezing the conflict will not work in any way. And the missile authorization is a very dangerous escalation on the part of the United States. Well, no, yeah. This says the U.S. was in fact responding to Russia's escalation. Washington authorized Kiev to use these weapons in response to new Russian attacks on Ukrainian energy, 120 missiles and 90 drones on Sunday, as well as the arrival of North Korean troops in Russia. On June 14th, Putin set out his opening terms for an immediate end to the war. Ukraine must drop its NATO ambitions and withdraw all its troops from the entirety of the territory of 4 Ukrainian regions claimed and mostly controlled by Russia. While Russia will not tolerate Ukraine joining the NATO defensive alliance or the presence of NATO troops on Ukrainian soil, this is the reason for the beginning of the war in the first place. So none of that has changed. Anyways. Well, let's hope that there are some back channel talks going on. Let's hope that Well, and I think, NATO has always been a non-starter for Russia. Financial Times is reporting what fake news. Oh, I see. Oh, well, that wouldn't be out of character. I mean, there is going to be a lot, there's going to be a lot of fake news reports out there. So that's why I'm showing this post from Kim.com, but I'm not totally sure about the veracity of his particular post. So, I'm saying that, even though I'm showing that, I'm saying that, you really gotta be wary, double check, and be skeptical. Well, we never finished the Cold War, and I'm going to read this from Jeffrey Sachs, which is very interesting. It's very important to understand the World War II never ended with a treaty, and I think the United States was to blame. The reason it never ended with a treaty is that the Soviet Union said, Germany killed 27 million of our people. We want Germany to be disarmed and neutral. Of course, Germany itself was divided into occupation zones at the end of the war in 1945. The U.S. immediately came to the view in the summer of 1945 that the next war would be with the Soviet Union. Rather than making a peace agreement to end World War II, the U.S., along with the British and French occupation zones, formed the Federal Republic of Germany, and rearmed Germany. By the way, the fact is that they put a lot of former Nazis back in charge of leading armaments industries, and a few years later, Germany joined NATO. That's a true story, by the way. This was, of course, both an affront and a threat for the Soviet Union. NATO was never viewed as a defensive force. The Soviet Union saw NATO as the next front in a continuing Western war against it. There were periods of détente, for example, with Nixon, and periods of tension, but there was never an end to World War II on the basis of a treaty. When Mikhail Gorbachev said, I wanted to end the Cold War and be sure he ended the Cold War, he ended it peacefully. This needs to be remembered. It wasn't an American victory. Mikhail Gorbachev said, I wanted the walls to come down. Of course, Reagan wanted to do that peacefully together with Gorbachev, but it was Gorbachev's initiative. I watched a lot of it firsthand, up close in Central and Eastern Europe as an economic advisor to the heads of government involved in this. Immediately, the question of German reunification arose. In that context, there needed to be an agreement between the West and the Soviet Union for the legal end of the occupation of Germany. German reunification was a legal event that was essentially the end of World War II. You needed the Soviet assent. What did the United States and Germany say to the Soviet Union to get that assent? It was not ambiguous. It was not unclear. They said, without equivocation, we will have German reunification and NATO will not move 1 inch eastward. And then they lied and went back on that promise. Where is the honor? Where is the honor among thieves? Those were the words used by U.S. Secretary of State James Baker III directly to Mikhail Gorbachev on February 9th, 1990. Hans Dietrich Genscher, on a tape you can listen to, said, when we say it won't move, we don't just mean within Germany, we mean anywhere to the east. It's so clear. Of course, America cheats. Please understand this. America is a big power. It cheats. It tries to do what it can. It uses media and propaganda to get away with the cheating. That's what big powers do, have no question. A few years later, the United States claimed, oh, we never promised that. You can read it in the documentation, which is available online in the National Security Archive of George Washington University. So in 1994, under Bill Clinton, the U.S. cheated. They adopted a plan. NATO would expand eastward. And by the way, not just eastward by 100 kilometers or 300 kilometers, but keep going east all the way to the Ukraine, all the way to Georgia, remember. They wanted to go even beyond. I'm sure some crazy person in the United States said, why not Kazakhstan? Why not Uzbekistan? Why not Armenia? Their idea in 1990, I know it was, we won, especially in December 1991. When the Soviet Union ended, the American strategists, if you can call them that, it's a kind of euphemism because they are hardly good at strategy, said, we're alone. We're the most powerful country in the history of the world. We're more powerful than the Roman Empire. We're the world's sole superpower. We can do whatever we want. So that was the mindset. And cheating goes along with that mindset, the arrogance of power. So to make a long story short, yes, the United States started to expand. Zbigniew Brzezinski, one of the strategists, explained very clearly in 1997 in the book The Great Chessboard why Russia would be unable to resist. In a meticulously laid out chapter, he asked the question, what if the U.S. pushes NATO? What if Europe keeps expanding eastward, crowds Russia, surrounds Russia? What can Russia do? Brzezinski asked whether Russia could resist or if he would have to give in. If it would have to give in, he concluded that Russia would have no choice. He reached the conclusion, for example, that Russia would never form an alliance with China. He also concluded that Russia would never form an alliance with Iran. Okay, theorists, this is playing games. He compared the world to a chessboard. By the way, the world is not a chessboard. It's not a poker game. It's the real lives of 8 billion people. American strategists are trained in game theory, which by itself and in its name gives away everything. They treat the world as a game, bluff, raise, call as if it's a poker match. And you know what? They used other people's lives to do it. They raised the stakes with Putin. We raise you. But whose lives were they betting on the table? The Ukrainian lives? Not a good show. All right, that was pretty good from Jeffrey Sachs. All right. Moving on. Okay, there's a lot more to cover here. By the way, guys, remember to follow, like, share, subscribe, whatever it is you got to do, whatever channel you're watching on. Please make sure you're hitting the thumbs up and all that kind of good stuff. Pacific Northwest is getting hit by Zibam cyclone. This is power outages in King County. 277,000 customers out of power and over 2,000 individual outages. This is the outage map. That is happening there. The G20 has removed language calling for a transition away from fossil fuels agreed on at COP28 from its leader's statement in Rio. You can call this backsliding or you can call it murderous indifference, really up to you. There will be no transition away from fossil fuels because it's politically not possible. It's not politically possible. You need somebody who, if you were actually going to do this in a meaningful way, transition away from fossil fuels on a global level or it's politically unpopular, and it's going to be very unpopular with people in general, obviously, because it is it undergirds the entire civilization. In the same note, along the same lines, Denmark is converting 15% of farmland to forest to cut fertilizer use. I wonder how this is going to be received by the masses. On some levels, I agree with this. And you could say like from a planetary level or from a climatological level, like this makes sense. But from you're getting rid of farmland, how are people going to eat level? It's not going to be very popular. It's interesting. I'm always interested by these moves. The EU seems to be willing to actually make, the US is completely lost in the sauce about doing things. The only thing we want to do is something that makes people money, which is like force people to buy electric cars. This doesn't necessarily make people money, right? you're actually ending, if you're getting rid of farmland to grow forests, you're actually ending businesses. Unless you're planning to sell the trees, I guess. But this is not going to be popular, not on any level. I can tell you that much. People are not going to be happy about this. Denmark, among the most intensely cultivated countries in the world, with almost 2/3 of its territory farmed, set aside 43 billion Danish crowns to acquire land from farmers over the next 2 decades. Wow. Under the deal, which also makes Denmark the first country to impose a carbon tax on agriculture, the Nordic country plans to plant 1 billion trees on farmland over the following 20 years, according to the Ministry for the Green Tripartite Agreement. The ministry was created in August to implement a Green Deal reached in June between farmers, industry, labor unions, and environmental groups. Reducing emissions from agriculture, Denmark's largest source of greenhouse gases, has been a major hurdle for lawmakers seeking to achieve a legally binding 2030 target of cutting greenhouse gas emissions by 70% from 1990 levels. Oxygen levels in Danish waters reached alarmingly low levels this year due to the runoff from nutrients from fertilizers in lowlands. I know there are a lot of people out there that are going to be like, no, they hate you. They hate humans. Anybody doing this is hate. No, come on. These are real problems. These are actually, fertilizer runoff is a very big problem. It, destroys oceans, destroys lakes and rivers. It is not a good thing. Okay, listen. And these are things that we should be implementing, worldwide to stop what we're doing to the planet. I'm sorry, we are doing things to the planet. That's just freaking obvious. I know a lot of people out there might not agree. That's okay. It's all right. Just, food forests. Yeah. It would be great if those forests were food forests. Yeah, sure. I saw a really great, just in passing, something about a regenerative coffee plantation where they had several like fruit trees planted and this ground cover that held in moisture and got rid of the necessity for fertilizers, and they were a very productive coffee plant. It was kind of like, this is how you're going to do it if you don't want to destroy the planet. The problem is with the rate of consumption, right? We have 8 billion people supported by fossil fuels and by technologies that are also driven by fossil fuels. And there's just a certain level of damage and destruction when you do that kind of, agriculture, production, mining, shipping, driving, production, more production, all of these things together are what is destroying the planet, right? When, people are, people from all walks of life, right, left, or whatever, can agree that, factories pushing out chemicals into rivers and lakes is not a good thing. Byproducts from manufacturing, such as fluoride or other things, fly ash, all of these things, these are poisonous things that we don't want in the environment. But why are they there? Because we're producing at a rate that, requires these entities to push out all this poison into the environment and or try to, use it for something. There's kind of no way to get rid of it. That's the byproduct. That's called the poisoning of the planet, the byproduct from all of our production and consumption. So it is people driven. It is driven by people. Okay, that's just like, come on, man. It is not anti-human to talk about this or think about this. So let's get it together, Grouch. Not to mention just, oil in general. The fossil fuel companies in general are also poisoning the planet hand over fist. We know this. It's obvious. It's clear as day. If you can't see it, you're probably spending too much time trying not to see it. Anyways. So I agree that this is a good thing that Denmark is doing. And there's been a lot of fights around this. There's been a lot of protests around this. Of course, people are going to wonder where they're going to get their food from. That's a natural reaction. You have to work these problems out in a way so that people can still feel like they're going to be supported and or fed, that farmers might have, livelihood and or the ability to, maybe have a livelihood doing something else. It's a hard problem. It's a difficult problem. It's a politically not a popular problem. It's not a thing that you can deal with. Going back to this other post, the G20 failing to say that they're going to, steer away from fossil fuels. It is murderous indifference, but you can't, politically, this is just, it's hard to do politically. It is hard to do politically. Anyways. Anyways, more fun from the Biden-Harris administration as they prepare to depart. Biden-Harris already cut at least 15 million people from Medicaid and 42 million people on food stamps in the middle of a silent recession, a recession that they are not allowing to be called what it is. We're in a recession. We've been in a recession. We have been, people are still trying to tell people that, inflation's going down. Oh, okay, well, if you have enough money to buy food, you're fine. But talk to anybody who's just working a day job. Talk to anybody out there who's just, paying rent and living paycheck to paycheck. Talk to them about how, inflation's going down. I'm sure you're going to get a backhand real quick. Or you should get a backhand, because that's not what's happening. That's not what people are experiencing. And you want to really piss people off? Tell them that what they're experiencing isn't real. Anyways. I don't necessarily expect much better from the Trump administration. And that's not going to be great. We'll see. The USA will supply anti-personnel landmines to Ukraine, a signatory to the convention that bans their use. Recall the campaign that Princess Diana joined in the 90s. It's all ditched as the empire crumbles. Future Ukrainian kids won't thank foreign flag wavers. So landmines being approved. They're just like, yeah, whatever. All the rules are out the window. That's okay. We're fine. But this from Ben Norton about the incoming Trump administration. Vivek Ramaswamy, a venture capitalist with $950 million in wealth, or $950 and the richest oligarch on earth, Elon Musk, plan to impose extreme neoliberal austerity. This is why I say I don't, I expect actually more of the same from the Trump administration. I don't expect the Trump administration to be a beacon of socialism and safety nets. No way. But, again, one can hope, but that's about all you got. Their model is Malays, Argentina, which is enduring a severe economic depression. Over half the population is in poverty. Half the population is in poverty. Well, what was the number I saw the other day? That 30% of Americans are skipping meals. 30%. I think it was like 27, 28%, but that's 30% of Americans are skipping meals because they can't afford food. Again, tell people that they're not experiencing what they're experiencing, or that it's not happening, and you're going to have a really angry population on your hands. Yeah, but they're, don't think for a second that the office of, or the Department of Government Efficiency, the DOGE, isn't going to be used to wield cuts against social programs, right? It won't be used to make the military, to make the Pentagon more efficient, or to make the Department of Defense more efficient. No, sir. It's going to be used to cut food stamps, Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, budgets for other agencies that are overseeing the welfare of Americans. That's the most likely outcome. All right, guys, if you enjoy the show, if you like the show, if you like what the show brings you, Monday through Friday, and sometimes I throw out a video or two on the weekends. If you like it coming to you for free 99 and you want to support the show, well then I would be happy to have that support. You can do that by the links in the description box. All the usual suspects are there: PayPal, Zelle, Cash App, Buy Me Coffee, Ko-Fi, etc., etc. Your donations are greatly appreciated in order to keep the show going. So many of you support the show already. You know who you are, and I thank you. All right. Your son just got his MJ farm investigated by a New Mexico rep. He passed? Okay. All right. That's good. Judy Druitt. I'm just looking through the chats here. Steph C, yes, nature cannot break down waste as fast as we can generate it. Nope. If we were a much smaller population, it could. I know, that sounds anti-human. It's not anti-human. It's not anti-human at all. It's just humans, controlling themselves is what I'm for. Controlling themselves is what I'm for. Not somebody else controlling humans, or, there being a board of, what people would call like death panels. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about humans being wise enough to control themselves and their impact on the planet. Right now, we are just bratty, greedy little children who think that we can take everything that we want without any repercussions. And there will be repercussions. But that's how we live on the planet. That's exactly how we live. Not everyone. I'm saying as a whole, as a unit. It's not anti-human. That's actually pro-human. Pro-humans getting their shit together. That's not anti-human on any level. Anyways, just clarifying that people that talk about what humans are doing to the planet or trying to help the planet survive are not people that hate humans. That is ridiculous. That is an absolutely ridiculous notion. Okay, let's try and stop that. Stop that message, in its tracks, because it's Come on. Yeah, of course the people at the top don't care about you, but that's always been true. That's not not a new revelation. They don't care about you. Anyways. Judy Truitt says, I don't think they will try to cut Social Security or Medicare, perhaps some of the redundant bureaucracies. Well, again, all we can do is kind of hope for the best and hope that they do act in a way that is somewhat reasonable and, and somewhat, in a way that makes people feel like they're cared about and not like they're being left to the wolves. At the moment, I feel like people feel like they're being left to the wolves, which is, why Trump got elected in the first place. I mean, that's fairly obvious. Yes. Department of Government Efficiency is an oxymoron or a doublespeak or I don't know. I don't know what you'd call that. Yeah, sure. Something like that. Gene Whitworth says, I think they hate Trump because he refuses to just sacrifice himself for them, like Biden arguably did. I mean, yeah. I mean, is Biden... Obviously, Biden's not in control of anything, and never was. He wasn't even control. I don't think he was in control of him being being nominated to run for president, or being forced to run for president. I don't think he really wanted that. I think that was an Obama directed thing or something, Anyways. AOD says, taking away land from farmers, giving it to whom? Tree planters, forestry services, parks and recreation, or the markets? Those are all good questions. That's why it's a really difficult problem. Because when people are concerned. I used to talk about, years ago, I was really into the idea of because we have like national parks, but if you've been to a national park, they're just overrun by people. There's a lot. I've been to national parks and they just seem like they're not. It seems like they're being degraded by like the tourism industry. That didn't make any sense. Tourism industry, right? People come, they overrun areas, and then there's dollar signs involved, and getting people to come visit these national parks. And they're, I actually was in favor of not, having whole areas not even available to human predation. And a lot of people were like, no way, man. I mean, I treat the land good. I'm a good steward of the planet. Yeah, no, you can't do that. Or, well, who's gonna control it? Who's gonna control the resources? That's a great question. That is a relevant, thoughtful question. Well, if you close it off to human, to humans, in general, or human activity, well, who can be there to actually, account for what's going on? Can you see if people logging companies are being allowed, and that's what's happening in South America, right? They have national forests in South America that are being, pilfered by logging companies and oil companies, right? They're secretly getting in there and doing what they want to do anyways. So how do you really enforce something like that? It's hard. It's a tough question. It is a tough question. It's a tough thing to do. These are none of these things are politically advantageous at all, right? You're gonna run into resistance. You're gonna have people being upset. Anyways. I think though, maybe really make it very difficult to get into a park. Make people do like a 2-week a 2-week like class in order to actually get like a permit to go into a park. I know, and people would be like, "Oh, well, it would probably knock out, like 2/3 of the yahoos that are just, let's go throw trash. Let's go and throw trash in the river. Isn't this great? Let's go, let's just go do some Yahoo shit." Sorry, there are a lot of Yahoos out there that want to just trash shit. So if you force people to take like this class to get a permit to go camp, like you'd really want to go. And then you'd really, have a little bit of, you'd have a little more value. There'd be a little more value placed on like your being allowed to get in there. But I don't know. But they won't do that because they actually charge fees, camping fees, permits, all these things, all these fees that they charge is a moneymaker, right? So they're not going to, damn, I'm getting blown up by spam calls. Man, I'm just getting like blown up. I wonder what's going on. Why am I getting blown up? You guys just stop it. Please stop it. Stop bothering me. And I realize a lot of people would have problems with what I have to say about this. Gene Whitworth. Now we got rich people buying up pristine land and closing it off, abusing it. Sure. Well, you also have wealthy consortiums buying up farmland, right? Buying up food production, turning it into, big business, dollars and cents. But they're not from here. They're not here. They're not necessarily stewards of the land. They're just here. It's dollar signs. That can't be good. There should probably be a law about that. I mean, I'd be into that. There should probably be a law about who gets to own the land, especially the farmland or the food production in your country. That should not be owned by another country or managed by another country. No way. Sounds pretty nationalist, doesn't it? But I think that sounds, kind of like common sense. True. It says people used to go out on boats without safe jackets and they didn't know how to swim. Yeah. All right, y'all. Let me make sure can thank everybody. Thanks for hanging out, guys. Thanks for joining in. And taking part in the discussion today. I appreciate you. Judy Truitt says, I think I heard one of Trump's nominees say they want to divest foreigners of U.S. land. That's something I would support. I would totally support that. Like, hell no. Like, no, China cannot own your food production or your farmland. No. I don't think that's really a great idea. But I also don't think that corporations should own the land either. So, you know, or, you know, corporations as we know them to be just money making machines, right? Because they're not really great stewards of the land either. There are secret international investors buying up all of the resources, public infrastructure, and more, says Kameshwari. Oh, yes. Yes, absolutely. That's absolutely happening. That's why I'm a fan of public services. In which case, I'm a fan of the government running particular services, you know, like not having it not be a public-private partnership, having it not be farmed out to private entities or corporations. That's when things go wrong. The agorists have it wrong. They are wrong on that. It needs to be managed by, you know, I know the government isn't, you know, always great, but they're gonna do it better and cheaper. And there's going to be less. But I'm telling you, when the corporations are in control of public services, things go south immediately, and which is, you can already see the fruits of that. We've already been down that road before. It was called the Gilded Age. We already did that. We don't need to do it. We're doing it again, and we're like, oh no, it's going to be fine. And there's people that are like, no, that's totally great. That's how it should be. No, that's craziness. Anyways. All right, guys. Thanks for watching. I appreciate you. I'll see you tomorrow at 11. You all are great and powerful. I don't know why my phone is just getting blown up. I've gotten like 7 spam calls in a row. I don't know what's going on. But not interested. All right. Peace out, y'all.